The new era of work doesn't just mean work from home or work from office or do some sort of a hybrid. It's actually a complete transformation of business operations where leaders have to relook at leveraging technology and also create flexible and inspiring workplaces to not just enable but also to empower a much in demand workforce on how to collaborate and also innovate in the new work reality. Geeta Gurnani, the country head modern work at Microsoft India, gets a 360-degree view from Gianni Giacomelli, the senior advisor at Genpact, and also Richard Lobo, the executive vice president HR at Infosys, on the future of work and the innovation that will shape the next generation hybrid workplaces.
The future of work is now. It is not as simple as hybrid or work from home. Technology is making great strides in making organizations provide flexible, effective, and most importantly, innovation inspiring workspaces. Hello and welcome, both of you. And this is a question both of you can answer. And let us set the tone with understanding how do you really see the future of work? There is not just digital transformation, but also a cultural transformation which is at play. How do you evaluate what we should do and how should we be ready for in the workspaces? Richard, that's for you to start with.
So thank you, Geeta, and a pleasure to interact with you and Gianni on this wonderful program. To me, I think the future of work requires reimagination. The first, of course, goes without saying is that we need to make this work. We need to make this work for our companies. Plus, we need to make this work for our people. If companies don't meet their productivity objectives and people don't achieve their goals of a healthy balance, anyway, this won't work. The second piece, which I find very exciting, and I'm sure Gianni will add his perspective, is technology. I think never before have we had opportunities of so many new technologies coming into the workplace. And I think we can put them to good use to make work a little better for all of us. Thirdly, I think we can reimagine the infrastructure and workspaces, both in terms of what we see in our offices and what we see in our towns and cities. We have a chance to live where we are more comfortable and work where we are more comfortable. So many of our existing offices can be reimagined. Many of our existing cities and infrastructure can be reimagined. But I go back to what you said. Culture remains the key. None of this will work if we don't relook at a new culture at our work. Firstly, I think flexibility truly means flexibility. We have to be democratic, flexibility for everyone. Secondly, I think we need to learn to measure differently. We need to learn to measure outcomes, not necessarily people being in office. We need to see how people can deliver best no matter where they are or what they use in terms of spaces, in terms of technology. We need to really measure differently. Thirdly, I think when it comes to culture, we need to use technology and data intelligently. We have so much of data, there is a wealth of information available. And if we use it intelligently, I think we can make much of the culture change possible because we can supply managers, we can supply employees with better data. They can work better using insights. They can deliver better outcomes. And finally, the most important one, I go back to this, is trust. There has to be a two-way trust. Employees need to trust their employer. The employer needs to trust employees. Because when we trust each other that we are delivering to the right objectives, much of this will happen automatically. And if trust holds, we can make all the other things work.
Thanks, Richard. And I think I really loved the trust part which you spoke about because there was a conversation I was having with few of the technology leaders where they said, we want to put all the data and technology at use just to empower employees, but not really do any surveillance on employees so that there's a level of trust which exists that why the data is really getting used and for what purpose. Just taking this question to you, Gianni, that how would you think about the future of workspace and any thoughts you would like to share beyond what Richard just shared with us?
Thank you, and thanks for having me. I actually agree with everything that Richard said. I'd like to build a little bit on a few of the things that he said, especially the concept of reimagination. My role has changed. I now spend a lot of time outside of Genpact, and I work at MIT for part of my time. I work at the Center for Collective Intelligence, where we study how we can get networks of people interoperate together in a very different way, because now we have the technology, and I think in the last 2 years we have proven that we can really reimagine how those interactions happen. I'd like to talk about the future of work as a place where we turn enterprises into a collective brain. And I'm going to borrow a lot of work that has been done in neuroscience and artificial intelligence over the years, and obviously that's the foundation that we sit on at MIT. We need to move away from the organizational design practices that we've been using for 50 years, because otherwise we end up being incremental. Yes, we have better technology. Obviously, Microsoft has a lot of good technology, and now we know how to do human-centered design. So when I think about the future of work, I really think about 2-3 things. First is identification of the right resources, the nodes in that neural network. And this is about finding people, their skills, and putting them in the right place all the time. So the first thing is, if you were to engineer your collective brain, you would certainly pay attention to the neural nodes and how you move them and how you connect them together first. Second, we need to intentionally give them knowledge. Knowledge in the form of knowledge management and enablement, for example, the SharePoint work and increasingly Viva topics, but also give them knowledge in the form of learning. You're probably familiar with thinking slow and fast, which is Kahneman's way of thinking about how the brain works. Knowledge management for enablement is really the thinking fast. I need something now. I'm going to go to a meeting with a client. I need to see certain things now. And that's the knowledge management that comes from there. But also the learning that allows me to do things in the longer term. So thinking fast and thinking slow can be supported by technology. And then you want people to collaborate. Just like the brain, the neurons don't do all that much in isolation, but they really express their power when they collaborate. And obviously you need incentives, you need technology, you need norms, trust, culture, etc. But all of that hopefully will get us to a rewiring of the collective brain. That's actually something we call super minds at MIT. And I think it's a very useful concept for the future of work.
Fantastic. And I think I definitely love the book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And I learned the new definition. I think you put it very well between learning and knowledge management. That how do we think about the thinking fast and slow, and also the neural network of the people, right? I think what I would like to just extend this conversation, since we are putting so much emphasis on the people, Gianni, to you, that you have always maintained that it's people, not the organization, that innovate. In the new work reality, how does one ensure that teams are digitally mobilized, collaborating for innovation? Because you put so much emphasis on collaboration. So any thoughts around the team structuring part and collaboration for innovation?
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm going to possibly clarify the way I see human-driven innovation. So I've been on record saying that technology is a necessary but totally insufficient component for the digital transformation. The other part of the digital transformation is really the change, but also the design of the change that is done by humans. I mean, at the end of the day, even the best technology that we have, even the technology that you guys at Microsoft have, even the technologies that we play with at MIT, they are not plug and play into human systems. So again, just like a brain doesn't really do all that much with an individual neuron, is really groups and networks of people that innovate. Right? It's not individuals. The locus of innovation is really the networks, how they're structured, because there's a lot of research in this space. The three of us, for example, here come from different places. We have our skills and our ways of doing things. I'm pretty sure that if we were to do a workshop, we would actually discover a bunch of things that we can benefit from each other. So if you think about multiplying this by 100,000 times, right? I mean, large organizations, Infosys, Genpact, we need to make sure that we enable the meshing of people's ideas, right? So there's a really good book that is called Where Innovation Comes From. And the book actually states that innovation is really about ideas coming together and playing together and creating the new generation of ideas. That requires, so that combinatorial nature of innovation requires that the networks connect, but when they connect, the people who connect in the networks need to be able to interoperate. whether in a formal way, workshops, etc., or serendipitously. So, for example, through a water cooler moment. Right? For example, the example of water cooler is great because what we did, for example, at Genpact, we created a water cooler application that is built on Microsoft technology that looks at the network structure of the company and intentionally creates serendipitous interactions between people who haven't really met for some time, but come from different parts of the organization. We call them weak links. And not at Genpact. I mean, the theory says that those weak links are super important for innovation. And so there's an application that brings these people together into meetings that are scheduled at short notice, almost like if you were bumping into each other in a water cooler. And now you can do it in a hybrid fashion. And the last thing that I would say is learning to interoperate requires training. It requires learning and development. We call them T-shape individuals. T-shape individual is a different person compared to an I-shape individual who's really good at one thing, can go really deep in that, but really will find it difficult to interoperate with others, whereas a T-shaped person is able to have that spike, but also is able to connect a little bit with the domain of other people when they connect with them. And that is essential. Otherwise, we would create a forum for interaction, but then the humans wouldn't be able to connect with each other. So two things, intentionality and serendipity and connectivity, but also the skills that allow people to interoperate.
Fantastic. And I think this takes me back to one of the message which Satya was giving about hybrid work, which is importance of social capital in the whole hybrid environment. And your water cooler app probably is one of the greatest example that how do we leverage technology to really allow a space where social capital in the digital world can be really cultivated. So great thoughts. With that, Richard, I'll move to you because beyond employees, there is a very important role which now managers also have to play in the hybrid work. And to embed this whole flexibility, collaboration, and innovation, a lot more onus is actually falling onto manager who really needs to hold the key to unlock efficiencies and drive experiences for employee. So, how do you ensure empowering these leaders in the new work model? Any thoughts around the manager and empowerment of the managers, Richard?
So, Geeta, thanks for that question. And I think the role of managers is very drastically changing. For example, at Infosys, we did an experiment to find out who are our key influencers among the manager community. And we found very interesting revelations as the person who's hierarchical is not necessarily your most important person in the network. The manager is no longer somebody who manages, to use the word. I think this is someone who is part of the team, is a powerful individual contributor, either through experience, through knowledge, or through learning, but also is someone who empowers their team, who they can look up to add value, helps them deliver outcomes. Besides that, I think the manager also has a huge connect to the larger organization. They are the important pieces of the network, which makes things happen. All those, the human aspects are equally important. It's not only about us analyzing data or intelligence from the network and making things happen. But fundamentally, I think a manager's role in the future will be to encourage each person in the team to contribute, irrespective of the hierarchy, through multiplicity of learning, through the ability to contribute, and to the ability to connect. And I think a manager to me is someone who utilizes a company structure. So the company provides structure. We have to enable people to become better managers. So it's not, you can't just leave this to serendipity and assume this happens. So we've been doing some interesting experiments in seeing who are our better managers, what differentiates them. And we've identified around 7 or 8 components which differentiate better managers from the ordinary.
Fantastic, Richard. And I think all of us would agree that all three of us also on this call are managers in some form and shape. So definitely, I think what you just shared is very, very applicable. And I could just relate to my day-to-day working and how I'm trying to deal with my team. So, Richard, with that, I'll just go into a little bit of your writing. And just for the audience who's listening, Richard, do write a lot. So, Richard, we were just reading one of your recent blogs where you mentioned about the big shift in how we work now. And which is actually greatly shaped by the pandemic, because the way we work today is very much after effects or in process effect of the pandemic, and it has provided us as an opportunity to rethink our talent model and conceptualize a digital talent marketplace for the future. What do you see a big trend that will influence this shift, and how pivotal is the role of technology in that whole digital talent marketplace?
Thanks for mentioning some of the writings I do. I call it the boundaryless organization. For an organization to really succeed, it should be able to utilize the best of technology, irrespective of where it is created, and to utilize the best of talent, irrespective of where it is located. And I think these are very two important principles. In a truly boundaryless organization, uh, like I mentioned, we should be able to use technology irrespective of where it's created and use talent. Two ideas on this. Fundamentally, I think the first one is that we should be able to use workforces using technology, in the sense that if we have a great platform where if I need a great talent who is sitting, say, in the UK or somewhere else, I could just be able to use this platform and get them to work on a particular project, evaluate their performance, rate them, and pay them for what they deliver. And the evaluation or the feedback I do should be visible to somebody else through either a very secure blockchain based model or any other model. So this comes to a platform for talent which keeps self-sustaining. The second is on an individual level. Like, for example, I gain certain skills out of working, let's say, on the very same project. So I should be able to show something which I can label, or you can label it as a skill passport. And as I grow in my skills, others can see whether my skills have kept up, or whether I have added, I've moved to the next level. This is something where we're actually removing friction through technology. And I think technology is a very important aspect of this, because without technology, this really won't work. So similarly, we could gain from talent which somebody else has trained, and then we could add value to that talent and give it back to the larger system. So these boundaries which companies, countries, and cultures create will get less. They won't go away.
I think this was very fascinating, Richard. I was almost imagining the world where we'll have the digital talent platform. Before I switch gears and go to the next question, Gianni, do you have any comments for Richard's thought right now on the talent marketplace?
Oh, I totally agree with Richard's point, and actually with Richard's encouragement to think much more broadly about supply and demand of talent. We live in a world where the ability to collaborate and interact has removed a bunch of limitations that we had, and what we left, however, is the limitation in the way we source people. I mean, if you look at the nature of the IT industry in India, actually the reason why that ecosystem is so strong is at some point somebody removed some historical reasons for not doing work of that kind in India. And I mean, literally it was email, right? At some point somebody said, hey, but I can do it there. And then the rest is history. And I think we are living in another moment of that nature we just haven't fully realized yet.
Gianni, I want you to talk about a term that I have heard you use, phygital, where walls of physical difference close in, and also how the corpus of knowledge can be used for future ready workspaces. Any thoughts around that?
So people live already in phygital spaces, which is partially physical, partially digital. They move between those spaces all the time. If the three of us were in a physical space together, we would probably have a better experience in terms of social interaction, but probably would be a much harder job for us to connect to the knowledge that we have in our company. Because if we are in a remote environment, we just can pop up, say, Microsoft Viva Topics and start identifying resources and start identifying the people. And you would do that from a digital space, but then potentially could lead to going and meeting people in a physical space. But the offices and the technology infrastructures that we have are very often built in a fairly separate way. Yes, we have meeting rooms that have good screens and good quality of video, etc., but it's not exactly the same. And so the CIO's job and the head of facilities job is largely separated. Now, if you think about the brain doesn't work the same way. The work that we do at MIT shows that the brain is actually pretty resilient to changes of settings. And our environment, our office environment, is not built that way. So my point about Phygital was simply to bring attention to the point that when we do human-centered design of experience, of employee experiences, we really need to bring together the physical and the digital and really think about the corpus of knowledge that we have in the company. For example, in the interactions, we talked about virtual water coolers, but also the knowledge graphs that exist. And when those knowledge graphs interact in physical life, they're kind of dark, meaning that you cannot map who's talked to whom and what do they say. Whereas when they are in a digital environment, you can track them, you can figure out the connection between people and between concepts.
Thanks, Richard and Gianni. Just wanted to know your parting thoughts on how are you leveraging technology to foster thriving work culture in the next generation hybrid workspaces for Genpact and Infosys?
I think I'll keep it a little larger than Infosys because I think all of us have once in a lifetime opportunity. I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to make our work life better. To me, this part is about the human. The focus is on the human. We have to bring back the focus on the human at work and try and make work more human. For this, we have to put technology to good use. The advances in artificial intelligence, the advances which we are having in terms of sheer technology which is happening, we can put that to good use. We can put the fact that we have workspaces which we did not think were possible, like our own homes, like the larger cities, to good use. And I think the one point which didn't come out, and I think it's a very important point, is that impact we are having on the planet we inhabit. And I think if we purpose this better, and I think we'll have a little less impact than we have today. We could probably all travel a little less. We could commute a little less. We could put our planet to a little bit of rest, which I think it got for 2 years in the pandemic. I think as managers, we have been more flexible. We have been more trusting. And I think the same thing I see happening in every company. Take it to me from this discussion, and it's been a very fascinating discussion. And I thank you, Geeta, and thank Gianni. But I think with all this, we bring back the focus on the human at work.
Fantastic, Richard. And I think so great of you to add the angle of impact on planet. I think we sometimes just don't think that as a first thought. That's usually the afterthought. But I think, as you rightly said, it's also an opportunity to see that how do we have a better impact on the planet as we redesign and reimagine the whole work-life part of it. Yanni, over to you. Any parting remarks from your end around the technology and future of work?
I echo Richard's point about impact without the negative side of the impact, and I think it's exceptionally important for all of us to keep in mind. It also will permeate our cultures in the future. I mean, if you think about my 30 years of career, there was a time in which we wouldn't think twice about, bringing 30 people into a room, flying them halfway through the world, and that was the way to build culture. I think increasingly, if you do that now, and if you do that too many times, people will actually think that you're building an enterprise culture, but an enterprise culture that doesn't take into account the carbon footprint. And so I think it's important to moderate our footprint on the planet, but we still need to Richard's point, I think it's an incredibly important one. People want to be successful with other people that they like. And that's the reason why they show up for work, and that's the reason why they do the best work. And that can be influenced by having the right culture. For me, just a parting thought is trying to connect the dots with the work that we do also at MIT, is that technology allows us to be exponential, as in collectively exponential. People's minds are linear, but when they operate in groups, they are augmented by collaboration technology, we become exponential, we become a supermind, right? I write about it a lot, and if anybody's interested, there's a website that's at www.supermind.design. If anybody is interested in the design of those technology environments that ultimately, to Richard's point, are about the experience of the humans as part of a large network that can get things done.
Fantastic. I think I really enjoyed this part of the conversation in terms of how technology will assist humans, right? That's how I think we should look at it, that we just take all the mundane task or something which probably humans won't enjoy, let technology take over that and assist the humans to get best out of the humans. I think very well put, Gianni. So I think I really enjoyed this conversation and hope the audience who is listening to this also enjoys this conversation, and a lot of learnings for me as personally and also at an organization at large. Thank you so much, Richard, and thanks, Gianni, for your time.